events organized by Mine de Nancy. I would like also to highlight the presence of my colleague from the steering committee of World Materials Forum, Stéphane Mangin, who many of you already know. And so maybe I need my slides, if Tatiana can show them, because it seemed that my slides went on spam. So we had a small technical issue to get the slides back on the screen. Here they are. Thank you very much, Tatiana. Can you make it full screen? Thank you. So World Materials Forum was created here in Nancy 10 years ago. And it was created together. I was really happy to create it together with two incredible people. The first one is called André Rossino. André has been the mayor of Nancy during 35 years. And he has been inspirational in creating Artem, where you are today, that brings together Mine de Nancy, Institut Commercial de Nancy, Arts et Métiers de Nancy, and the Institut Jean Lamour. So a little bit of a Berkeley in Nancy, which is not exactly very usual in France. And the other co-founder, Philippe Varin, is one of the most well-known French industrial leaders. He has led Peugeot, Citroën, the car maker. He has led Pechiney Aluminium. He has led Orano, so the uranium recycling. He's really really one of the guys who've made the French industry over the past 40 years. So the three of us together, we were sitting on the Stanislas Square in Nancy, and we thought that there was really a great opportunity after all the work that had been done in the field of research to being researched into real industrial scale. And that's why we started World Materials Forum 10 years ago. And this is why I want on this title slide to remind you what is our scope. Our scope is to decouple economic growth from the use of our natural resources. Why? Because everybody who says they are green, initially 10 years ago, they were against industry. So if you were green, you were against industry. And we didn't like this, because we thought that industry is the first green supporter. So we wanted to demonstrate this. And to demonstrate this, we had to show that industry development and economic growth could happen while decoupling from the use of our natural resources. So while being really green. Because if being green means stopping the growth and coming back to the Middle Age, this is not what we want. So we were really convinced that we could do it, and we could use Nancy as really the forefront of this effort. And very clearly and very quickly we discovered that all around the world we have wonderful research, but we are not the best, nowhere in the world, maybe except mainland China, to turn research into real industrial scale. So really, for us, fast-scaling research is crucial. And I will show you what we have done over the past 9 years and why we think it is so important that you are here today for this event organized by Mine de Nancy. So I don't know how to push to the next slide. Do I need to ask every time, or maybe you have something for me? Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Alexandre, to ask you to do some sport. Thank you. Okay. So why do we need to decouple economic growth and the use of our natural resources? If you look at it, there are three major trends. And I think it's very important to remind people, because our approach is not about concepts or nice policies. It's about facts and figures. So if you wish, by the way, those of you who are making pictures, I mean, the slides are open to you. So you can just ask Alexandre and he can give it to any one of you. They are no secret. So the first three trends that explain why we have an issue is, one, the growth of the population. So every one of you will have read in the newspaper that we are coming to a sort of to the end of acceleration of the growth. China has announced that they will have reached a certain summit in 2060. I think Europe will be 2050, but still, if you look at the figures, and I think if you can really make it full screen, because it's difficult for me to read the figures without. Thank you very much. So if you look at the figures, they are very impressive. We had 3 billion people in 1970. So 1970 is only 50 years ago. Huh? In 2020, we had already 7.8. So we have more than doubled the world population in 50 years. And even though we are supposed to reach a maximum in China and Europe in the 2040-2050, we still expect to reach 11 billion in 2050. So from 1970 to 2050, in 80 years, we will have more than tripled, if not multiplied by 4, the world population. Those guys, they need to eat, they need to travel, they need to work, so they need a number of things. And all this means natural resources and materials. But this is not the only thing. Because if you think about the population alone, and if the population, they were all living, in agriculture environment, you would need no skyscrapers, no computers, no cars, no aircrafts. So, even if you were to multiply by 3 or 4, you would still need, you would only multiply by 3 or 4 the use of materials. But those guys, they have 2 characteristics. One, the percentage of the population that lives in urban areas is rocketing. And second, the great news, the middle class is also rocketing. So we are very happy to get people out of poverty. It's not a bad news. But if you think, I turned 60 last week, okay? My nephews, they are all in their 20s to 30s. And what do they tell me? When I started working, my ambition was at the age of 30 to have a studio where I could live alone, and have just a studio with a kitchen. And now the same guys, they want to have a car, they want to fly by aircraft once a month, they want to have a computer, they want to have an iPhone. All those things are creating incredible need for raw materials. If you think of an iPhone is 200 grams, the weight of an iPhone is 200 grams. Do you know how many kilos of raw materials you need to manufacture this 200-gram iPhone? Any idea in the room? Give me a figure.
50 tons.
How much?
50.
50 kilos? 70 kilos. So for 200-gram iPhone, you need 70 kilos of raw material. It's huge. So if you look at those 3 trends, urban population who need to move from the suburbs to downtown, who live in skyscrapers, people in the middle class who have computer, iPhones, microwave ovens and all the rest. All these things means that, and the next slide is, now I can try. Yes. And the second big trend that we've had only over the past 10 years is a strong green push. So people think, and they are rightly saying, that we have to be careful about our planet. But the result of it is being green means using even more material in the coming 10 years than being not green. Because, for example, to accomplish the electric revolution, you will need much more materials and minerals than you would need if you were to stay with fossil fuels. So, of course, it's good for the planet in the long term, but in the short term, it will mean using much more natural resources, minerals, and materials. So as a result, if you look at it, materials to be extracted in the next 30 years is the same amount of materials that we have extracted in the past 4 billion years. So, just simple facts that you never read in the newspaper. And because we, those bloody industrial guys, we knew those figures, but we just wanted to make it available and visible so that people make the right decision. So our summary of solutions are here. We think that there must be a usage revolution. We must use smarter, less, and longer. Smarter means, for example, BlaBlaCar. If one car is just in a parking lot 20 hours a day, if not 22 hours, and you only use it 2 hours, and only for one person, it's not exactly efficient. So BlaBlaCar, for example, is a very good example of using smarter. Also, to get contrary to some ideas some of you might have, the aerospace, they have been the first guys to use smarter. If you look at it today, the aircrafts are the transportation means that are used the best in the world. They are used 70% of their time, whereas a car is only used 8% of its time, even with BlaBlaCar after 10 years. It was only 4% 10 years ago. So just thinking of those things I think it's quite eye-opening to have a look at certain of the figures. Of course, using less, I already mentioned the smartphones. The using longer, I think you've all heard about reusing UV batteries for residential energy storage. So you have a number of great projects, including at Université de Lorraine, to develop those applications. And it all comes, I'm very sorry to say, from technology and technological innovation. So in a country like France that is very admin, it was a big revolution to admit again that technology that we thought was far away, we were still, mentioning the 19th century revolution in France. And when I was trying to convince people that mining, green mining was necessary to manufacture EV batteries, people were telling me, but remember, Victoire, in 1905 in Lille, we had a major accident and 200 miners died. I said, 1905? But we are in 2023. No, but, think, guys, this is what, people still think and what you read in the newspaper. So we have a big job to do to make people realize that green revolution also means industry. Today, for example, all the gigafactories that we are building in Europe, for those gigafactories, it will be all alive and efficient in 2035 for this new European rule of only EV batteries. We only have 7% of the raw materials we need for 2035. Today, we only have 3%. If we do what we have already announced in terms of raw material supply, we will only have 7%. So what do we want? We in Europe, we have left the fossil fuel, while relying a lot from Russia, Middle East, and all those countries where we had difficult relationship with. And now we want to implement EV batteries, the electric revolution, and we only have 7% of the raw material. What happens if we have a similar crisis to Ukraine happening closer to our frontiers, when we only have EV available? How do we get those raw material? Oh, you will tell me, recycling, great. Yes, but recycling. For recycling, we first need to produce batteries, and we recycle them only after 10 years. So if we have normal production of batteries in 2035, we will have normal supply to our recycling unit in 2045. And what if anything happens until 2045? So we have a number of things, of problems we need to solve. And for this, we need collective intelligence. And I think this is, for us, the French, I think it's a big revolution. Because, many of you know that in France, we are raised with a lot of individual training and coaching, etc. And we are rediscovering collective intelligence. What are the countries where collective intelligence is very good? Germany, United Kingdom, and some parts of Canada or US as well. So we need to benchmark this really collective intelligence and how we can use it in Europe to make it really efficient. And just to give you an example, when we started World Materials Forum, we had a limited number of partners from the start, and one of them was the CEO of Mitsubishi Heavy Industry, so one of the biggest Japanese industrial groups. And the guy, his background, he has a PhD in math. For a French CEO to have a PhD in math as a background is just unbelievable. We go to administrative high school, but we don't go to study in university for PhDs. And this guy was a PhD in, he told us, the problem we have in Japan? We have great people who do Kaizen. So we know how to identify great innovation. Let's wait until the people do their first mistakes, and then when they have come to a good technology application, we copy it and we apply it in Japan. And it works very well. But the problem we have today is, in our generation, nobody wants to be different from the group. Collective intelligence has become so important that it is very difficult for one person to think differently from the group, because he's frightened to be excluded from the group. With this type of behavior, we cannot foster innovation anymore. And because it's becoming more and more difficult to copy, so we really need people to help us to foster innovation. And he said to us, and the French in the room will laugh, he said, you, the French, you are not respecting discipline. Okay? So we are very good at collective intelligence. You are very bad at following discipline. Why don't we work together And you bring us crazy ideas, and we will make them work with, you know, the collective intelligence that is needed for making them industrial. Believe it or not, this is how it has worked since we created World Materials Forum. Every year, believe it or not, the top management of Mitsubishi Heavy Industry is every year, end of June or beginning of July, 3 days with us in Nancy. We have identified together with Stéphane, I will mention it in a few slides, we have identified 70 startups worldwide that we nominated with our Startup Challenge. Out of those 70 startups in the last 5 years, 2 went bankrupt. But the top 20 have raised 600 million euros. So the top 20 startups identified by Stéphane, myself, and a few colleagues of ours have raised 600 million worldwide and are becoming the new industrial guys of the future. So just to tell you, in this challenge, in the jury, we have 4 big industrial guys from BASF, from Total, from Excel, and from Siemens. And we have 4 academia, and we have 4 startuppers. So it's all about bringing collective intelligence, startupper, academia, and big groups. So, sorry, I will be quicker with the rest of the slides, don't worry. So our WMF approach, I showed you a few things. Every year we are bringing new thing, a new project. The first year we started with KPIs. We were pissed off that people only value innovation with short-term financial results, because of course you kill innovation right away. So we have identified in-between KPIs, I will show you on one slide. The Startup Challenge I mentioned already. For those of you who come from the geology, I will show what we have developed, and is now a reference in the world, which is our criticality assessment. We review the Mendeleev table every year, and we give a rating to each of the elements of this Mendeleev table. And I will show you how it works. We have a monthly newsletter. All of you who are interested, if you want to give us our email address, you will receive for free our newsletter, and you will have information from all around the world of everything that is developed in all of our verticals. We have chapters now, international chapters. We have one every year in California, Japan, Australia, and now UK, thanks to Stéphane in Cambridge. We have also identified the top 10 technologies that we think will have a huge impact. I will show you those top 10 technologies and how we monitor their success. We have the Scale-Up Challenge. So because those startups have raised more than 600 million, we are trying to help them to become really industrial. The first one is now building their first plant in the world in 1 hour away from Nancy. They are hiring 150 people for recycling PET. We have a new initiative now with the Paris Peace Forum, which is much more of a political gathering, because we have discovered that even though we have all the best connection in the world with the top industrial people, with the top academia and the top startups, we also need some political support. We will come to it. So quickly, our WMF KPIs, they are just connected to using smarter, longer, and less, which I explained before. I will not go into details here. The next one is our criticality assessment. So we want to show the big picture on critical materials. So we have 7 criteria that we update every year. We are 4 associations together, so World Materials Forum, working with McKinsey, with CRU Metal Markets in London, and with the French Geological Survey. So the 4 of us, we meet every month, and we have met every month for the past 5 years. And this is the CEO of every organization meeting physically every month, just to develop this assessment. So we have 7 criteria: the years of non-reserve, the uncertainty of supply, the political exposure, the assessment of our recycling technologies, uncertainty of demand, vulnerability on core applications. You could see in the previous year that it was very appropriate to focus on certain applications, the environmental footprint as well. And we also track the actions that are being made to improve the criticality of those materials. So new mines with eco-design, substitution by less critical materials, for example, moving towards sodium or sulfur batteries, scrap reduction throughout the whole supply chain that requires lots of artificial intelligence all along the supply chain, design of new and lower weight products, collecting, sorting and recycling scheme, and also, of course, public financing schemes. So I will show you now how it looks from last year. We will publish the next one next month. So you can see, the obvious usual suspect, nickel, cobalt, copper, but also tungsten and some rare earths, but only 2 of the rare earths, even though everybody thinks rare earths are really rare, only 2 are really creating an issue. We can see also that some of the ones that are circled in green are the ones where the actions that we have implemented are showing first positive results. And the ones that are circled in red is when some of the actions, usually unexpected, like for example the Ukrainian war, has created some added pressure on some of the minerals. So now I show you some of the awards. You can see Stéphane or Philippe Varin or myself, our top guys being top industrial leaders today or the next one to come on those pictures every year on the Stanislas Square. I want to show you also a few of the startup we highlighted. Again, you will have the slides. If you are interested with any connection with all of those startups, Stéphane and I, we talk to them every month throughout the year. They know that if they need anything from us, we help them. They come from all around the world. You have incredible things in the field of new EV battery chemistries, new composites, new fertilizer. I mean, one of Stéphane's favorite is a company called Nitricity. They are based in California. The guy has a PhD in chemicals, and his 2 parents are lawyers. So strange, okay? And he has developed a technology for manufacturing fertilizers with plasma. So he's using only air, water, and renewable energy, solar. And he has a plasma module, and at the end, he gets a fertilizer direct. And the machine is the size of Alexandre, and he's on wheels. And you just push Alexandre on wheels, and you can bring him from one village to another, anywhere in Africa. And it's just amazing. So, and compared to this, the current fertilizers technology is a huge capex plant that needs minimum 600 million investment, okay? And of course, this huge capex plant also needs then the fertilizer to be transported throughout Africa. With this technology, we could have in every African village a small module delivering fertilizer for the village. Just to give you all types of things. It's not only EV batteries, hydrogen, new composites. So we have incredible people. We have a fully recyclable plastic, PDK, that is developed by a guy at Berkeley Lab that is just amazing, and that could replace fully polyurethane. So, I mean, just amazing thing. What else can I show you? Of course, quantum is just, I mean, also developing fast. We have great people also recycling. For example, wind farm, composites to recover the rare earths. The 2 ones that were shown red on my previous slide. What else can I give you as an example? We have Voodoo, the last one, who raised 31 million last week. It's a French company. He's using wood waste, and he's reusing those wood waste as a new layer into building materials, and he raised 31 million last week. And we identified him in 2017, so 6 years ago. Again, all the slides are available to you guys. Here, the last ones are the one we identified as a great scale-up. So Carbios, I already mentioned, they are now building their plant 1 hour drive away from here, creating 150 industrial jobs. Cycladex is a very interesting one. It's a very small mining startup. So normally mining doesn't bring startup because it's very capital intensive. And this guy is really has become a friend. We've identified the startup again 6 years ago, one of the first nominees. And he had found an incredible process to do leaching for gold. And at the time, the only way for a mining startup to raise money was to mine gold, because gold was the one that interested everybody. So he has developed this leaching process for gold, and he has been so successful that he's now developing the leaching process for lithium, and it works. So we have now organized for him to meet the 2 key lithium projects in France. So he will be meeting with Eramet and with the Belgium company. I have a blank. It will come into... Huh? No. Imerys, thank you. So we are organizing a meeting for him with the CEO of Imerys in 2 weeks' time. And he will explain to them how he's developing this leaching tech that is using no chemicals at all. So it's just amazing. And he wrote to me yesterday at 2 in the night saying, Victoire, I'm extremely happy. And they all write to us during the night because they have incredible ideas. And they said he has tried it now for copper and it also works. So he was asking whether he could add a slide about copper when he comes to Nancy next month. And of course, I was very happy to say yes, he can add a slide about copper. So Zeta Energy is another one. Also, incredible guys, when we met the first time, they were just trying to reuse sulfur. You know, sulfur we have everywhere. In all our petrol refining capacities, we have sulfur, and we don't know what to do with it. And this guy is saying, I get rid of copper, I get rid of cobalt, I get rid of nickel, and I do batteries only with sulfur. So when they started 5 years ago, we told them, but how can you do this with sulfur? Because you are creating, first, a safety issue, and also sulfur is creating lots of dendrites. So dendrites make it that the efficiency after a few cycles just disappear. And you know what? I mean, these guys, they met with another guy who was participating at the World Materials Forum, a big chemical group called Arkema. And Arkema was developing carbon nanotubes. And the guy at Arkema, the CTO, told them, you know, if you put carbon nanotube into the sulfur, you will suppress the dendrites. And the guys in Houston, Texas, by the way, the company is co-led by a German and an Israeli citizen, which is not exactly a usual combination. So you have an Israeli and a German citizen together in Houston, Texas, who are developing a technology based on sulfur and carbon nanotubes coming from France. Okay? Those guys, all together, we nominated them in 2020, a little bit later than the other ones. And since then, since they have been nominated, I think we helped them to be a little bit visible. They have raised more than $20 million. They are starting their prototype, and they showed us yesterday by slides their results. They are just amazing. And they were showing their results to the CEO of Northvolt in a call organized by us. And the CEO of Northvolt was just seated, you know, he was just saying, wow, I just can't believe it in 2 years' time what you have achieved. So just to give you how those things can go very quickly, even with not so much money, because we are used to, you know, long C process, applying for grants at DDU with 300 slides, reviewed by a combination of hundreds of people. I mean, it's all very slow in our systems. And those guys can bypass our slow system and make it quick. And Malinda is another one, and this is also an incredible thing. So a Polish citizen called Ludwik Leibler, who wrote his PhD in Paris at ESPCI, so a chemical university, about developing a new material called vitrimer, which is halfway between glass and polymer. So transparent like glass, recyclable, transparent like glass, and transparent like polymer, easy to process like polymer, and recyclable and transparent like glass. And he was at the first World Materials Forum explaining what his vitrimer was. And there was a PhD student from Berkeley in the room, and the guy said, I really love this. He went to do his postdoc with Ludwig, and now he has created his startup in Colorado, US, and he's developing an incredible material for now not only aircrafts, but also for cars that is fully recyclable. BMW will be the first one to use it in a car. So again, Poland, France, Berkeley, Colorado, and back to Germany, BMW. And all this in less than 5 years, with very little money. So those things happen, just to show you, just by bringing people together, what we can achieve. Quickly now, maybe I can jump to the one that Stefan and I really like. I don't know why. I hope it will, okay. So our list of top 10 technologies. After 7-8 years of bringing people together and trying to understand how we could go even quicker, we said maybe the good thing would be to give to our political guys a list of technologies where we think they can have a huge impact. And when I mean huge impact is in decreasing water consumption, energy consumption, CO2 emission, production of waste. So if you just use those 4 KPIs and you try to have at least divide by 20 or 30 the existing numbers, that's where we come to. So the first one are new sustainable mining technologies. And this year, for example, at World Materials Forum, in 8 weeks, the closing session, you will have 3 of the biggest mining companies' CEOs with 3 of the most promising mining startup CEOs, and an incredible academia coming from University of Quebec, explaining how important this is, even though you have a great industrial actor interested, a great startup with a wonderful technology, how much social acceptability of the technology is important. So Corinne Gendron, who is the world specialist in social acceptability of mining, will be also speaking this session. And just for you to know, I mean, the guys who are coming are the CEO of Boliden and the CEO of Finnish Mineral Group, so the 2 biggest miners in Europe will be there. And we have also the biggest mining group from Africa, Ivanhoe Mining, Robert Friedland will also be there. So, I mean, people are coming to Nancy. When the first time we were asking them to come to Nancy, they were telling me, where is this bloody city, okay? They had no clue where it was. There was no airport less than 1 hour drive. So it was really a mess. And now they all want to come to Stanislas Square once a year. So just to give you those top 10 technologies, every year we have plenary sessions dedicated to 5 of the 10. So we alternate 5, 5, 5. And we have the biggest CEOs interested, the biggest startups, and the biggest academia. When we finished WMF 2022, every year we write the takeaways. So the big conclusion, the thing that really make us focus for the following 12 months. I show you the 5 takeaways from last year, and then I will show you the program of this year, so that you can see that we take the takeaways and we implement the following year. So we are bloody facts and figures focus. So speed is crucial. I think I made it extremely clear into my presentation that speed is just making it amazing. When we had our call yesterday with all those big guys in the EV battery field, they were telling and they were agreeing, and we had guys from Sweden, from Taiwan, from Texas, from France, from Germany. It was just amazing. And they were saying, if we don't make it in 3 to 4 years, it will be too late. So we have to be extremely quick. So bringing a new technology in the field of EV batteries and saying it will be live in 10 years, forget it. You have to make it live in less than 4 years. Restart and expand green mining and refining. As I said, the projects we have today ensure 7% of the supply of raw material in 2035. So we just have to wake up. And to wake up, I mean, one of the things that is just amazing, we need financing, not only public, but private. And to make it private, listed companies now, they only invest if the activities is included in the European taxonomy. And today, mining and refining are not included in the European taxonomy. So until they are included in the European taxonomy, you will have no listed private investor who would put money into mining and investing and refining. And we are 7 years away from 2035. No, not 7 years, 12 years away from 2035. And a new mine needs between 7 and 10 years. So we have only 2 years to convince our public people to include mining and refining into the European taxonomy. Public support will be necessary to de-risk. This they have understood. We've had the Critical Materials Act a few weeks ago. More recycling is needed, but recycling of high quality, not recycling of the material that you put under the road, you know, and you say it's good because it costs less to build new roads. No. Recycling to bring it back to the same materials you had at the beginning. So if you recycle batteries, you need to recycle it to raw materials can be used in new batteries. And this is very important because the recycling projects that have been funded until 2-3 years ago were bringing bad quality recycled products. So we have to be extremely careful with this. And last but not least, keep China in the loop. Okay, that's not easy. They are our biggest competitors. But remember, semiconductors, they have brought the biggest technology breakthrough by working all competitors together. The 300 mil wafer factories were built by competitors together. So we also need to find a way to work with China. So as a conclusion, what is our program and focus for 2023? Speed is crucial. So yes, we will have 2 plenary sessions focused on the 2 key thematics. One is decarbonation of iron and steel. Iron and steel is the biggest emitter of CO2. So, and we have all actors from around the world. Huh? We have Tata Steel and ArcelorMittal, the incumbent. We have the two biggest breakthrough innovators, Boston Metal from the US and H2 Steel from Sweden. And we have top academia in the field. Everybody is there for this session. Same for EV battery chemistries. I mentioned already the CEO of Northvolt, but also the CEO of Prologium. Prologium is from Taiwan. It's just announced this morning an investment of 4 billion into creating a gigafactory in Dunkerque in northern France. We have also the CEO of two startups, sodium battery and sulfur battery. And we have the Pope of EV battery in academia, Professor Karim Zaghib from Concordia, who has filed 200 patents in the field of EV batteries. So they are the people who will be in the room. And those two topics I really need incredible speed. On restart, expand, green mining and refining, I already mentioned our closing session. On public support necessary to de-risk, we will have top actors in the building and construction materials that are also extremely special, because the difference is that building and construction material, when the building is made, they stay in the nature for 25 to 30 years. So it's very important that we start thinking about it before building our new infrastructures. More recycling and no downcycling. We'll have an incredible session on recycling electronic waste. You know, electronic waste still have a very, very low recycling rate, below 10%. And we will have the top actors in the field. The big incumbent is a Belgian company called Umicore. And the CEO of Umicore, who is a German citizen, we will be there. And the co-chair is an incredible startup from Texas, who has developed a new technology to recycle all all electronic waste. And just to make you laugh, those guys, to make themselves visible, the first use case they had was to produce the medals for the Tokyo Olympic Games. And the guy was alone on his bench when he did it. And now he has raised 50 million and he has 150 guys working for him in only 3 years. And keep China in the loop. We will have two presidents of China University, so not only China but academia. The president of China University will speak in the decarbonation, because of course, as you know, China is the biggest producer of iron and steel. And we have another president of a China University who will do the keynote scientific speech with Stéphane. And finally, just to give you an example of the categories of speakers who are there, the chairman and CEOs, you can see them from all around the world, and not the smallest companies. The CEOs of fast developing companies, so startups who usually were nominated by us 5-6 years ago and have scaled up. Top academia, you can see the guys from academia, you're representing academia today. And top expert and NGOs, and of course C-suite executives. And just to conclude, see you in Nancy early July. We'll be happy to have you as participants this year, and of course speakers next year. This is the usual pattern. People come the first time, they meet people, they see what are the interesting topics, and then they apply for being a speaker the next year. And that's how we have created our circle of academia worldwide. So you will be highly welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victoire. I will take my speakers, my chairman, maybe a question if you have just a few minutes. My chairman privilege to ask the first question. I mean, you have a lot of academics here, not only, we have also companies, but you spoke about mixing the discipline, the collective intelligence, together with the French flair, or, you know, the individual spirit of
drinking beers on Stanislas Square, huh? That helps.
Yeah, my question is, here you have plenty of educators, of teachers, of researchers as well. What would be your recommendation to, let's say, make that happen?
Maybe, okay, let's be clear. I think there is also a circle of people who are incredibly committed to this happening. We all do it for free, so it's our non-for-profit. Myself, I'm the CEO of a deep tech startup that does micromachinery for pharma drug applications, so nothing to do with WMF. Stéphane is the French leader for Spintronics. Philippe is the first vice president of the International Chamber of Commerce. So we all do this as a commitment to what we think is important for us, so which is really bringing industry, startup, and academia together for a better and green world. And yeah, I mean, I really think the fact of this small circle being extremely committed, and every one of us bringing new ideas, new friends. I mean, what I'm doing here, Stéphane is doing it as well, Philippe is doing it as well, everywhere in the world. So, for example, you will be surprised to hear that we have 300 people every year. We never have more than 300. And we don't select people because they have big names. We select people because they contribute. So people who tell us, we want to come and listen or learn, and we say, sorry, this is not what you need to come and bring crazy idea. For example, Stéphane brought 5 years ago an incredible guy from Yazaki, and a German citizen based in California working for a Japanese group. So as always, you know, we are all a bit crazy. And he was explaining to us that he was very worried, and we were worried as well, that copper would become very short. And what we had predicted is true. And so he was trying to replace copper with aluminium charged with carbon nanotubes. And aluminium is much more available than copper, but carbon nanotube at the time, I mean, was not as efficient as we would have loved. So he made his presentation, and this morning before coming to you, I was in my lab, and I was working with a scientist from a French chemical group on developing a thin film for EV batteries on my machine, so nothing to do with carbon nanotubes. And he was saying to me, by the way, Victoire, you remember you visited this lab 3 years ago, and you will be happy to hear that they have incredibly improved the performance of carbon nanotubes. So I told him, but remember, 5 years ago, you had this guy from Yazaki, and he was saying that if we improve the performance of carbon nanotube, maybe we can replace copper by aluminium charged with CNC. And he said, great idea. And just before I left, he was writing to his colleagues to organize a call with Stéphane Matt at Yazaki to see whether we could restart this project of replacing copper by aluminium charged by carbon nanotubes. So it's just an example, and it's every day like this. So we are all trying, when we have an idea, we have no shame into, I mean, we have big CEOs participating. They are the most complicated people to bring on board. Normally you have, especially the French one, if you want to speak to a big CEO, you have to go through 3 layers of intermediary people. Stéphane and I and Philippe, we have the cell phone numbers of those guys. When we send them a text message saying, we met a crazy guy on the other part of the world and he's developing this tech, do you think you could meet him? If we send the message, they usually answer within 24 hours. All of them. Because, I mean, just to give you, again, another example. Peter Carlson. Peter Carlson, for those of you who don't know him, he's a Swedish guy. He was the executive vice president supply chain at Tesla during many years. And then at one moment in time, he said, I want to go back to my country because I want to bring the electrical revolution to Sweden. So he came back to Sweden and he created Northvolt from nothing. And that was only 6 years ago. In 6 years, he has raised nearly $7 billion to create gigafactories, but not only to create gigafactories with lithium-ion chemistry, he is watching everything new that is happening. He has also installed and built a 400 million recycling unit as a wall-to-wall to his EV battery factory. And he's always circling all around the world to find new ideas. And he was telling us 4 years ago, because we also have a Swedish citizen with us on the steering committee, he was telling us, you know, I have problem to create a real R&D in the northern part of Sweden because the big, you know, R&D guys, they prefer to be in Berkeley, California, than in the northern part of Sweden. So I really have a problem. I don't know how to solve it. And I told him, why don't you come next time you are in Nancy? I will introduce you to all the startups, CEOs, who are developing new EV battery chemistry. Maybe one of them you will like. So he comes, he meets all those EV battery startup CEOs. One of them comes from Taiwan, is a Californian citizen. He's a great guy. I mean, he was our Grand Prix, the second year of the Startup Challenge, called Richard Wang. And Richard and Peter start drinking a beer on the Stanislas Square, again. And 6 months later, Richard sends me a text message saying, Victoire, are you in Paris tomorrow? Because I'm flying to Sweden, and I would love to talk to you 1 hour. It's really urgent. I need to talk to you. I said, okay. So Richard arrives, and Richard arrives not alone, but with an Iranian citizen. So you see, it's always, again, very very multinational. He's COO, and he tells me, well, Richard, Reza and I, we are going to Sweden tomorrow because, I mean, we have an offer from Northvolt. They want to buy the company. And the deal, if they buy the company, is that the company becomes their R&D facility. And because Richard's wife is a doctor in California, his condition was, okay, but then I keep the R&D in California. And the deal happened. So Peter bought Kuberg. Kuberg, he has invested millions into the facility in California. Philippe, Stéphane, and I, we had our WMF chapter in California 1 year ago in their new lab, that is amazing, with all possible equipment to develop new EV battery chemistry. And this is a Swedish, Taiwanese, US, Iranian combination.
Pretty surprising. But
just to give you examples.
Yeah, I like the message to, let's say, believe this dream, these crazy ideas. I know there are a lot of crazy people in the audience today, too. I know many of them.
The only thing is you need to bring impact.
Yes, and I'm sure
I think it's very important. In Europe, we have a facility, one of our weak points, because we want to make nobody unhappy. We prefer to give $100,000 to 100 people than giving 1 million to 10 people. And I think this is one of the weak points of our system.
Yeah, so this question of the focus. But I keep the message also for the audience to share their idea, even the craziest one. Please. I think we did it quite well last year, and that gave birth to another project that hopefully will start next year. Do we have time? We have time for one more question of the audience. Does anyone have a last question to Victoire? No, okay.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Victoire. And now I would like to call the chairwoman and the speakers of the next session who will remain on the raw material.